Okay, let's get started. All right. Well, good day, everyone. Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live session on the topic why most job ads fail and how you can make yours stand out. I'm Chavi, content manager at Recruit CRM, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. I'll mostly be behind the curtains while I let our expert for the day to take all the spotlight. Today we have Jake and Ann with us. Let me give you a quick introduction. Jake is the recruitment training director at the Recruiters Guild, where he empowers talent acquisition teams through tailored training, consultancy, and expert support. With extensive experience in recruitment and talent strategy, Jake works closely with HR leaders and TA professionals to drive practical, impactful change, focusing on strategic leadership and measurable outcomes, of course. So, welcome, Jake. Do you want to say a quick hi to whoever's watching and a bit about what we'll be discussing today?
Sure, yeah. I mean, you've done a great intro, so I don't need to add much more there. Thanks, Javi. But yeah, I mean, thanks for coming along, and I just want to talk about job ads as I always do.
All right, awesome, cool. Well, let's get started with the session. My very first question for you is, Jake, why is recruitment marketing more crucial today than ever before, especially with the rise of remote work and global talent pools?
Sure. Okay. So there's there's a few parts of this. I mean, the first is probably the opposite of what most people think they want from job ads, and that's self-selection. It's one thing we don't always think about or notice, but like it's really easy now for an advert to run 300 plus applications. You see you see people like complain on LinkedIn. There's this whole thing on LinkedIn where people will say, "Oh, is it worth applying to this job ad? It's got 100 plus applications." And then you see the people coming back to that saying, "Well, actually, yeah, I've got 100 applications, but only two of them are actually relevant." So it's really important that with good marketing, we're actually allowing people to self-select and make sure we're giving people the tools to decide when actually it's not for them, to reduce that amount of irrelevant applications and make it a lot easier to look through those CVs, because we don't want to be using AI to look through CVs. We want to do that ourselves. But it becomes really, really difficult when there's huge numbers, and that comes from like quite generic, not interesting job adverts. And I guess the other side of that is you talk about remote work. The remote work, the talent pool is so wide as well, but so is the job pool. Candidates have got a huge amount of options now, and we want to make sure we're drawing those people. So we're not just we think we're getting those applications, therefore it's a good thing, but actually the amount we're getting from the right people is still quite low. So we still need to make sure that the marketing, the copy is attractive enough that we're drawing people in.
All right, thank you, Jake. My next question for you is, what are the top three mistakes that recruiters are making in their job advertisements, and how can they quickly fix them to attract better talent?
Sure. So the biggest one that always bothers me is the focus, and the sort of direction of travel of the writing. It's always we focused. It's always we need, I need, I want, you must have. It's very much about what the company or the recruiter desires from the candidate. And there's very little that goes the other way around of, you will get, you will receive. We need to remember the what's in it for me question, and we don't always answer that in our job ads. The second is mixing up job specs and job ads. This is common across the industry, and actually most people, I guess, that are watching something like this probably already know this, but you see a huge amount of people that see a job spec and a job advert as a synonymous as the same thing. But people copy pasting those job specs with these long lists of responsibilities, long lists of requirements. They're not very interesting, they're not very authentic, they're not very well written, because they're not, job specs aren't designed to be well written. They're a formal document. Mitch always puts this the best way. He says, if your mate down the pub was asking about the job, what would you tell them? If you can start there, start with that human voice, then you can turn it into something really authentic. And then the third one is structure. It's not something we've time to go into depth on, but the ADA structure works really well for job ads. And really any structure that begins with attention and ends with a call to action, with some interesting things in the middle, will work wonders to improve most job adverts.
All right, thank you, Jake. Well, my next question is something that's on everybody's mind. It relates to AI. How has the role of AI, especially ChatGPT, transformed the way recruitment marketing strategies are crafted and implemented today?
Sure. So ChatGPT has a use and a role, I think, in this, but I think it should be more limited than a lot of people want it to be. If you're going to use ChatGPT to spitball ideas and to help give you some structure and some guidelines and things like that, and some templates that you can sort of work with, then it's great. And it can do some really useful things. If you're willing to sort of go back and forth with ChatGPT, it can almost work as like a lot of us are remote these days. It can almost work as having somebody in the office with you to sort of bounce ideas off of a little bit. It's still not quite as good as that, but it's better than talking to nobody. But what we do see is a lot of people using ChatGPT just to write content for them, whether it's job ads, whether it's blog posts, whether it's LinkedIn posts, whatever sort of content they're making. They're just using ChatGPT and saying, "Hey, I need a post about X," and then it's giving them that, and then sort of leaving it there. And that doesn't work. The voice is still quite robotic. It still sounds not very authentic or real. So yeah, I think it can still, it's got a use, but the use is in the early stages, not in the late stages where it's currently being used quite a lot.
Okay, thank you, Jake. My next question for you is, can you share some quick actionable strategies that recruitment teams can adopt today to improve their job ads visibility and appeal to top talent?
Sure. I mean, visibility is hard, really. It's just about the channel getting in the right place and making sure it's getting the right traction if you're putting it on the socials and things like that. And a lot of that depends on what exactly you're recruiting for. Where those right eyes are to look at it. And a lot of this is it's trial and error. Unless you've got this data with a similar role or whatever, it's trial and error to work out what those channels are. Once the advert has been seen, though, that's where you can make a difference with good writing. And I'm not sure there are quick strategies for that. It's more in depth than that. It's quite a long process, I think, to get good at writing.
All right. Jake, so what metrics should recruiters focus on to measure the success of their recruitment marketing efforts and determine if they're effectively reaching the right candidates, like if these are working or not?
Sure. So I'd look at the funnel, the entire funnel from views to offers, and every sort of drop-off point that comes down that funnel. And then it's about improving the percentages at each area. So what percentage of those views are turned into applications? What percentage of applications are then suitable for interview? How many interviews does it take to actually get to an offer? Are we interviewing the right people in the first place? So we look at all of these sort of drop-offs throughout the recruitment process. In terms of recruitment marketing, the first two there are the strongest sort of the strongest indicators of the desirability and the relevance of the job ad. So those first two being, how many views actually turn into applications, and then how many of those applications that you get actually turn into people that you want to interview. Those are the two things that you can use to measure how attractive your job advertising is and how relevant it is to the right people.
Okay, Jake, I have another question. How can recruitment marketers use AI tools to personalize job advertisements and make them stand out in a crowded market? So we did talk a bit about AI, and it's still in the early stages, but there are still some benefits that recruiters can reap. So how can they use it to personalize some of their job advertisements to reap the benefits of AI?
Sure. So I mentioned at the start that standing out, and I don't think AI is going to help you to stand out just on its own. But it can help you, structure and create job ads if you sort of if you feed it the right prompts and give it the right things to begin with. It can give you the outlines and the templates that you can then turn into better things. I've got a custom GPT that I say trained. Trained feels like the wrong word, but that is the word we use, right? But I use it as a starting point. So I've given it loads of my job adverts. I've given it loads of stuff about my tone of voice. I've talked to it about structure. I've talked to it about all the different tips and things that I'd give anyone that I was training about how to write a job advert. And this can, if you're struggling creatively, it can give you a start. It can give you an idea or a couple of ideas and thoughts on how to begin. But at the end of the day, the words have to be yours. You can't just use the words that ChatGPT is putting out. you have to recognize that the structure it's giving you might be helpful, and it helps you with that blank page syndrome, but then you need to be editing and changing and just making it into your own thing, otherwise it just does not sound human. And when it doesn't sound human, it just doesn't sound, it's just not attractive, I think, in most cases. But that's at the moment. Like, I feel like a year ago when I was first looking at AI stuff, I felt like it couldn't even do that. So it seems to have come on leaps and bounds just in that last year. I don't know, maybe in a year or two I'll have a completely different opinion, and I'll be advocating for using GPTs for everything. But at the moment, it's just not there.
All right, thank you, Zig. I have another question. In your experience, what emerging trends do you see shaping recruitment marketing in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years, and how should recruiters prepare for these changes?
Sure, I think recruiters generally are becoming more aware of how important it is to be actual proper marketers. It used to be the case that most recruiters would speak to didn't really understand that there's that side to their job, and they just saw it as, well, we need to go and source candidates. We've always got source candidates. I do think there's a lot of people, depending. I have to write a lot. I feel like, but I do feel like a lot of people are depending quite heavily on AI, and I think those AI adverts will make your job ads better than a copy pasted job spec. But I think the people that are either using proper copywriters or learning to write themselves are the people that will, from a recruitment marketing point of view, will get ahead.
Oh, Rejik. Um, Let me see. I have a couple of more questions for you. Just give me a minute. All right. So my next question for you is, I had like a list of these questions to ask you today. How can recruiters go beyond copy paste job ads and create genuinely engaging content without needing a full fledged marketing team?
Sure. So I mean, a lot of it is just about writing skill and practice. I think I it's hard sometimes for me to sort of talk about it because I read a lot and I write a lot, right? So I'm interested in the craft of writing as well as in recruitment generally. So I think that gives me some advantages in terms of like what good writing looks like. Um, but really, it's just practice. I think it's just getting over that first hurdle of having the confidence, because a lot of people struggle with the confidence initially of, oh man, I don't want to write this because it's scary and people will see it and see that I can't do this, but actually a lot of people can. Getting over that first hurdle and then just practicing with some structure and with some ideas of how what good looks like. And if you can get over that first bit, then you can just continually improve.
All right, Jake. So in your opinion, what are some red flags in job ads that immediately turn candidates away?
In terms of what will actually turn candidates away, like the stuff that I'll complain about and not like job ads that talk about, well, that open with like we need and we're recruiting for, things like that are just irrelevant and don't add anything. If you're looking at a job board, at a job advert on a job board, and the first thing it says is we are recruiting for, you've got completely wasted sentences there, stuff that's adding nothing. But I don't think that necessarily turn away a candidate. It just means they're less likely to read the rest of the advert. And really, the key to every part of that job advert is we want them to read the next bit, because if we can get them to read the whole thing, then they'll make an informed decision when they actually apply about whether it's the right job for them. What we don't want is people to decide it's not for them straight away without having an informed opinion, and we also don't want them to just apply on the basis of the job ad title, the salary, and the location without reading the ad, because they thought, well, I can't be bothered to read that boring stuff in there. So we want, the key is we want them to read the entire ad. So stuff like that. We are recruiting for a dynamic, innovative. All the stuff that's sort of meaning this. It won't necessarily be a red flag to a candidate. It might be something that means that they're not then making an informed decision. And then what you also get is where you get those sort of passive aggressive end calls to action, where you get things like, if you haven't heard back in 2 weeks, you should assume that you've not been successful, and things like that. Those things really turn candidates off. It just feels like you're not really looked after in this process.
All right, Jake, I'll ask you one final question before we see if any of the audience members watching have any questions. In your opinion, what's a recruitment marketing fail you've seen or maybe experienced yourself that others can possibly learn from?
Well, it's hard because there's so many. I think most job ads are poor by design. I think the biggest one that always bothers me is the job description. It's written like a job description. You've got a list of requirements, which is like 15 bullet points long, where you must have it, each one of these skills. And then there's a list of responsibilities as well, saying you must be able to do each of these 15 things. And then you realize that actually not only have you got a ridiculous amount of responsibilities and requirements, they could also be the same list, because in the responsibilities it says you'll use Excel to do this, and then in the requirements it will say you must have Excel skills. Why are we writing that twice? And actually, why are we writing that at all if it's, say, an accountant's job, when you should know that your audience is going to know that they're going to need Excel? It's not trusting your audience at all, and sort of trusting the intelligence of the audience. So there's a balance there of trusting the intelligence as well as giving them enough information to make an informed decision.
All right, thank you, Jake. So now we'll transition into our Q&A round. So if any of the audience members have anything on their mind and anything that sparks some curiosity in their minds throughout the discussion, you can drop in your questions in the chat. We actually have one question from an attendee. They're asking, how do you balance making a job ad appealing without overselling the role?
Sure, I think this is about authenticity and honesty, and also a good understanding of what the job actually offers. There's no point in overselling a role and getting to the point where people are joining the business and then leaving because it's not what they think it is, or it's not turned out to be as good as you sort of sold it. This is where you need a really good understanding of your employer brand, and the EVP that sits behind that employer brand, so you can really leverage those things to to hit the right balance.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much, Jake. I'm waiting to see if there are any more questions. Let's just wait a few seconds. Meanwhile, Jake, do you have anything else like regarding this topic, regarding recruitment marketing, that you feel like the audience should know about? Something that maybe I missed asking you, something that you want to share?
Um, it's hard to say. I feel like there's so much that you could talk about with marketing. One thing I do like talking about actually is humor and in job ads, because I know some trainers in the area will talk about avoiding humor where you can, because it doesn't always land. Whereas I'm a big believer in, if you can include some subtle humour, things that are either going to be funny to people, or they're not going to necessarily notice that it's something in there. It just adds a little bit of humanity and authenticity to what you're trying to say. And in all things, yes, we want to make it attractive. We want to make it authentic. We want to make it human. We want to make it real. We want to make it meaningful to people, so that they're actually reading what you're writing, and it means something to them, rather than just being, as I say, the sort of normal generic stuff that you see in a lot of marketing.
All right, thanks, Jake. We have one more question. They're asking, if you had to build a recruitment marketing plan from scratch, where would you start?
I mean, if we're talking completely from scratch, then it starts way before we're even talking about recruitment marketing, and we're talking about EVP. So we're talking about the employer value proposition. We're talking about what, or we're looking at, why do the people in the business, why are the people in the business, why do they enjoy it, what are they happy about? And there's a whole host of research that you'd want to do in that area, looking at why those people are there. You'd want to talk to the recruiters that recruit for these roles. You'd want to talk to the senior leadership about why they're there, what they see as the future of the company. There's a whole load of things that you'd want to build into that EVP, that you can then turn into an employer brand, which you can then start to begin looking at your actual recruitment marketing plan. So how are we actually going to use that employer brand to get that messaging out there, to get that marketing out there in the right way? So that's where you start, is the EVP.
All right, thank you, Jake. I think those are all the questions that we have today. Well, yeah, Jake, any final closing remarks before we end the session?
Um, yeah, I guess I'd just like to say let's just do better. I think there's a it's an easy fix, for a lot of us to make things just that much better, to make sure that we're appealing to the right people, but also we're allowing people to self-select if they're not right. So I think if we just take a little bit of an interest in recruitment marketing, and I think it's one of those things that maybe doesn't have as much interest as it perhaps should for how important it is. If we take that interest, then it'll make a huge difference to your efforts.
All right, thank you so much, Jake. I think those are all the questions we had, and thank you so much for answering my questions so well. And yeah, that's it for the session. Thanks for engaging, to all of the attendees for asking those questions and joining in, live and watching us, have this discussion today. I've dropped a couple of links in the chat for everyone to engage with. So, you can connect with Jake on LinkedIn. I've dropped his LinkedIn profile link in the chat. And you can also check out the LinkedIn page for his company, the Recruiters Guild. You can also book a demo with Recruit CRM if you're interested in checking us out live. And we also have a no commitment, sign up link with which we have like an unlimited free trial. You can sign up for that as well. And we also have a website, so you can just check out our website and explore the product there as well. Plus, we're dropping in some social media links for you to engage with and follow us on social media to stay up to date with upcoming LinkedIn lives. And yeah, that's it. We will see you guys at the next event. Thank you, everyone.